It was supposed to be the highlight of the day, a dazzling performance at OceanWorld's Ocean Theater. At exactly 3 p.m., music erupted from stadium speakers. Children leaned forward in their seats. Phones went up. And from the deep blue water, a massive male orca named Luna burst into view. Riding just behind him, balanced, confident, smiling, was trainer Maris Ellington. For the first 4 minutes, the show was flawless, fluid, magical. Then, in minute 5, the cheers turned into screams, and by 3:12 p.m., Maris had vanished, dragged beneath the surface by the very animal she spent years bonding with. In front of 1,200 stunned spectators. Her body would resurface 8 minutes later, cold as the water that had swallowed her, broken in ways no one dared to describe. Life, once fierce and bright, now gone forever. What happened that day was not random. It was not an accident. And what led up to that moment reveals a chilling truth about captivity, about control, and about the illusion of safety in a world built for entertainment. This is the tragic end of a woman who loved the ocean, and the orca that took her life. Before we dive deeper into this heartbreaking story, take a second to support this channel. If you care about real-life mysteries, human courage, and the hidden consequences of our modern entertainment, like, subscribe and share this video. Because stories like Maris Ellington's deserve to be remembered. Fully. Honestly. Completely. Now let's go back and uncover what really happened. It began not with tragedy, but with a dream. A dream called OceanWorld Marine Park. Founded in 1978, OceanWorld was once a modest coastal attraction. A sunny escape built to dazzle, to educate, and to bring families face to face with the wonders of the deep. But over the decades, it grew into a spectacle, into an empire. For over 40 years, OceanWorld drew in millions. Children, tourists, students, all mesmerized by its crown jewel, the Ocean Theater. A stadium built for magic. And at the heart of it all was Luna, OceanWorld's largest, most intelligent, and most misunderstood orca. But behind the choreographed routines and the roaring applause were the trainers. The human beings who spent years earning trust from creatures capable of crushing a boat. Among them was one woman whose bond with Luna seemed unbreakable. Her name was Maris Ellington. Maris Ellington wasn't a thrill seeker. She wasn't a fame-hungry performer chasing claps and camera flashes. The stage lights, the blaring music, the roar of the crowd, they were background noise to her. What truly mattered was the quiet moment before the gates opened, when she stood at the water's edge and felt the pulse of the ocean in her chest. She was observant, patient, and deeply, almost spiritually, connected to the sea. Born in 1989 in Ventura, California, Maris grew up just a few miles from the Pacific coastline, where the salty air clung to everything and the horizon felt endless. Her childhood was shaped not by cartoons or shopping malls, but by tide pools, the crash of waves, and the distant silhouette of dolphins breaking the surface. By the time she was 8, she had turned her bedroom into a mini museum, seashells sorted by size and color, preserved in glass jars with handwritten labels. At 10, while her classmates were writing essays about their pets, she was passionately describing the emotional intelligence of whales, citing scientific journals she could barely pronounce. At 18, while many of her peers were still deciding on college majors, Maris was knee-deep in salt water and seaweed, volunteering at a marine rescue center. She worked long shifts scrubbing tanks, feeding injured seals, and logging behavioral notes on rescued seabirds. It wasn't glamorous, but she didn't care. It was purpose. By 20, she had secured a spot in OceanWorld's highly competitive internship program, a feat in itself. Only a handful are chosen each year from hundreds of applicants. Most burn out under the long hours, grueling physical demands, and mental strain of working with some of the ocean's most powerful predators. But not Maris. She had something, one senior trainer later recalled. Animals trusted her. It wasn't just technique, it was presence, like she was made for this. Another trainer remembered the first time she interacted with Luna, the selective orca who was slow to trust new handlers. "We all talked about it," he said. "The way Luna responded to her, like no one else." That connection became the foundation of her career. By 24, Maris had risen to the rank of senior orca trainer, one of the youngest in OceanWorld's history. She was leading routines, designing elaborate water choreography, and performing in front of crowds larger than some rock concerts. But the real work happened behind the scenes, in the quiet hours before the gates opened, when it was just her and Luna in the still blue water. That's when the bond between them deepened, a bond that would define both of their lives. Luna wasn't just any orca. He was the biggest in the park, over 9,000 pounds, 22 feet long. A full-grown adult male brought in from an overseas breeding program after multiple failed attempts at integration. He was powerful, stunning, and unpredictable. Before OceanWorld, Luna had been involved in 2 serious incidents. One trainer was hospitalized with a concussion. Another suffered a fractured arm. Both incidents were quietly buried in internal reports. No media coverage. No changes made. Why? Because Luna drew crowds. At OceanWorld, he was the main event. His towering breaches, his thundering tail slaps, his dramatic spins, all choreographed to cinematic music and flashing lights. The shows weren't just performances. They were spectacles. Multi-million-dollar productions designed to dazzle, distract, and dominate. Parents brought children, tourists came from overseas, and park profits surged with every standing ovation. Luna wasn't seen as a predator. He was a performer, a headliner, a brand. And under Maris's care, he flourished. Or so it seemed. Maris and Luna trained together daily, sometimes for 5 or 6 hours straight. She never raised her voice, never punished. She used subtle cues, food reinforcement, and something even deeper, trust. Together, they developed a new show called Ocean's Majesty. It was elegant, minimalist, designed around quiet harmony, not flashy stunts. Unlike other routines, there were no splash zones, no fireworks, no shouting. Just synchronized movement. Maris and Luna gliding through the water in silence, perfectly timed. The audience were spellbound. They moved like one creature, a colleague later said. It was like she could read his thoughts. But as the bond grew, so did the risk. Because even the strongest bond cannot override biology, and Luna was still a wild animal. In the summer of 2021, Maris began noticing subtle changes. Luna started surfacing late. He hesitated on cues. He circled her longer during training. His eyes, once alert and engaged, started to look distant. She documented everything, in her personal journal, in official behavior logs, in quiet emails to her supervisor. "He's different," she wrote. "There's something behind his eyes I don't recognize." She wasn't being paranoid, she was being professional, but the park had other priorities. Their response? Keep the routine simple. Maintain the bond. Stay positive. The show must go on. The summer shows were too lucrative to cancel. Tickets were sold out weeks in advance. And OceanWorld had a reputation to uphold, of harmony, of control, of magic. But behind that fantasy, the cracks were widening. It was a Saturday. The air was warm. The crowd packed every inch of Ocean Theater, standing room only. Maris had just returned from a rare week off in Maui. Friends said she looked rested, light, even excited to perform again. Backstage, she suited up in her wetsuit, tied her hair, tapped Luna's head affectionately before stepping onto the launch platform. She whispered something into his ear. At 3:04 p.m., the gates opened. Music soared. Luna launched into the air with jaw-dropping force. Maris dove in behind him. The show began. For 4 minutes, it was perfect. Every cue hit. Every gesture answered. Then, minute 5. Luna missed a cue. Maris repeated it, softly, patiently. No response. He circled her, slowly, deliberately. She raised a flat palm, the trainer's neutral signal. He hovered. watching her. She turned to exit the pool. That's when he blocked her path. A 9,000-pound wall of stillness. His dorsal fin just feet from her. Silent, waiting. She paused, tried again. He dove. Then, he struck. Luna surged upward, jaws wide, and clamped onto her torso. He pulled her under like a torpedo. At first, the audience applauded, assuming it was part of the act. Then they saw the blood. Screams erupted. Children cried. Parents froze. Emergency horns blasted. Alarms sounded. Trainers tossed food to distract him. Companion orcas were released. Nothing worked. Luna resurfaced, Maris still in his mouth, and slammed her body against the tank wall. She broke free momentarily, tried to swim, reached out, only to be seized again and dragged under. Divers were forbidden to enter during active aggression. They stood helplessly behind thick glass panels, gripping rails, watching. "We saw her face, just for a second," one father said later. "She screamed, then the water swallowed her." The attack lasted 12 full minutes. Luna dragged her back and forth across the tank. He ignored every signal, every call. Finally, at 3:20 p.m., he let her go. Her body floated, face down. She was pulled out with a net. CPR was immediate, but it was too late. She had suffered massive trauma. Crushed ribs, internal bleeding, collapsed lungs. At 3:34 p.m., the official pronouncement came. Maris Ellington was gone. Within hours, OceanWorld's PR department moved into action. Their statement, brief, polished, and carefully worded, described the event as a tragic accident. A rare, unforeseeable anomaly in an otherwise spotless safety record. But behind the closed doors of staff break rooms and trainer offices, no one was calling it an accident. The people who had worked beside her, who had heard her concerns, read her notes, and watched her stand between Luna and danger, knew the truth. She had seen this coming, and she had tried to stop it. In the 2 weeks leading up to the attack, Maris had filed multiple behavior logs, each one more urgent than the last. She documented Luna's delays, his uncharacteristic circling, the distant look in his eyes. She flagged his increasing unpredictability 3 separate times. One entry, dated just 11 days before her death, was chilling in its simplicity. If this escalates, someone is going to get hurt. Her warnings went nowhere. No protocols changed. The shows went on. Tickets remained sold out. After the attack, there was no inquest, no public hearing. OceanWorld settled with her family behind closed doors. No testimony was given. No one took the stand. No accountability reached the public eye. Meanwhile, Luna, the orca at the center of it all, was placed in medical isolation. Trainers reported that he refused to eat, drifting aimlessly for hours, unresponsive to calls, signals, or even the presence of handlers he knew well. Some believed he was grieving. Others believed something inside him had broken long before that day. The final snap of a mind caged for too many years. 4 months later, without warning or public notice, Luna was quietly transported to a secluded research facility in Iceland. There were no press releases, no ceremonial farewells, only the hushed efficiency of a move designed to go unseen. The world was left in the dark, and Luna vanished from the spotlight without a trace. Since then, he has never performed again. Maris believed in harmony. That kindness, patience, and trust could bridge even the most primal divides. She believed love could conquer fear, that the tank could be a stage, not a prison. But nature cannot be choreographed. Orcas are not actors, and tanks are not oceans. Her death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a reckoning. Because even the most experienced trainers, even someone like Maris, is still human, and instincts always return. Today, every July 17th, her colleagues gather quietly before the first show. They leave white lilies on the platform where she once stood. The stage remains. But the orca water shows at OceanWorld? Discontinued. Maris's name now lives on through a marine science scholarship. But her real legacy lingers in silence, in the still surface of the water where trust once danced, and in a handwritten note discovered in her locker days after her death. You cannot put the ocean in a tank. Rest in peace, Maris Ellington. You gave everything, and your story will not be forgotten. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And remember, some forces were never meant to be contained.